much to all the panelists who gave you a flavor of what's happening at the global level with the hunger index. With Maggie, who gave us a flavor of the stresses and how they're pushing the triangle out in weird shapes. The food, energy, water is no longer a nice clean triangle. And Connell and Matthias, who shared with us experiences from the ground, Tanzania and Sierra Leone. I'd like to open it up for you to ask any questions, comments, maybe about 5 minutes or so, 5-7 minutes before we have to go to the next session. But we can informally interact thereafter. We have mics there. We are also a small group. Feel free to just stand up, ask your question, comment. And if you would tell us just your name and institution, that would help us.
May I ask a question?
I will have a very interesting panel discussion.
Yeah. It's a brief question. I'll get people started. Margaret Catley Carlson. I want to ask Matthias a question. We talk about what should be done in these cases of these land grabs, and we talk about what's happening. Are there any bridges that we can use as an example? Because our pictures are all of people throwing themselves in front of bulldozers, and very dramatic and usually unhelpful and not well, things that don't end happily. Are there instances where people have got together and made an effective, not necessarily rock-throwing, protest against government and have actually stopped things from happening in the worst possible direction? Because the public view of this is that you've got huge force on one side and mini violence on the other. And are there other examples?
I mean, there are many examples where people were protesting.
Yeah.
In Cambodia, for example.
But did it work?
A little bit. It's working also a little bit in Sierra Leone because there are many protests now, and there is more awareness. Sierra Leone government is starting to change a little bit, yeah? And they are thinking, oh, there is now public attention. There was a BBC forum organized on this case, so government is beginning to be a little bit more cautious. Yeah?
The government of Madagascar toppled after they kind of sold off half of their land to South Korea. So that has been effective.
That was pretty dramatic.
That was called off. So.
Yeah. We also have a comment from our audience, maybe in response to you, Maggie.
So the most effective example has been from last week with the 60,000 people marching in India. 60,000 landless people in a non-violent way marching for land rights and actually getting an agreement from the Indian government to move forward on a new land policy, but also to provide microplots to people who are landless.
Which part of India was that in?
It was a march towards Delhi that was stopped before Delhi. I'm Carol Boudreau, I'm the Africa Land Tenure Specialist with USAID. So I have a comment really and a question. The comment is, this is just a great report.
And before you do that, we're saying bye-bye to Maggie, not because she hates us anymore, but because she's miking up for the next session. Carol, thank you.
See you in plenary.
So great report. Not surprising since I'm a land tenure person. I was really heartened to see the emphasis on land and water rights in particular. My first comment is, I have not seen, I think, a better project on the ground to secure land rights than Concern's project. So many congratulations. That's a terrific example of securing rights at the local level. The question, though, is really this. This is a very complicated process of securing both land and water rights. We tend actually in the profession not to think about them together. But obviously there's a tremendous need to address this problem. We're addressing in Sierra Leone. How can we use technology more effectively to help address the needs of farmers and people, women on the ground, to secure their rights? We can do this in some ways through barefoot paralegals. We can use some GPS technologies. But are there other technologies? Are there crowdsourcing opportunities? Are there other kinds of social media that could be used to help us do a better job of securing these rights in a low-cost manner for people? Thank you.
Thank you. Before I turn to the panel, if there are any other questions or comments, let's gather them at this moment in time and then we'll come back to it in one go. Am I missing anybody? Because this is like an auctioneer. Going. Vicky.
Just a short question to Connell Foley. Did you say you did get you're going to do that study, that follow-up study, or that you applied and you're not going to do it? Because that sounds really important to do it.
I think we begin with you, Connell.
Okay.
Speaking of Mike.
We applied to the International Initiative for Impact Evaluation a number of years ago, but as we know, they give very few grants. We're actually talking with some USAID people in Tanzania at the moment about reapplying. There was also an issue that we had started the project, and there was obviously going to be an issue over control, etc. So we're now looking at it afresh, and I think it would be useful and important study. So if you know anybody in the International Initiative, put the stake in. Just on the, how could we use technology more effectively? Thank you for your comments, by the way. We also were involved in that Janadesh about 4 or 5 years ago in India. Similar march. In India, we've been using mobile phone technology to hold the government to account on the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which is quite interesting. So again, it's looking at, I think, the possibilities that mobile technology are giving us for holding people to account for the commitments they've made. Otherwise, I can't come up with anything creative off the top of my head, but I'd be delighted to talk with you afterwards about it.
Matthias?
Thank you very much for the interesting questions on technology. I think a very, very important point you're making. We have one experience in Cambodia where we have produced maps, actually, GIS maps, in order to explain to the local government of what is going on their territory, what they are supposed to administer. And they were completely surprised. They said, oh, this is really going on here, we were not aware of that. So all of a sudden they changed their view completely on land investments, and they act on it. But before, they were really not aware of what is going on the scale. So this is just an example, but I think there are many more. And I think, as we heard yesterday, technology is evolving very fast, and we can maybe use it more in a more efficient way in the future.
Claire, did you want to come in also on the land water?
Yeah, I actually just comment on what you just said on maps. Ethiopia could use such a map. Like 5 years ago, we asked them, so where are you putting all your biofuel projects? The government official said, we are going to put that, we are allowing it only on land that cannot be used for food production. And I said, do you have a map that shows that land? And he said, no. And Ethiopia now is one of the countries that has the largest, huge number of these land deals and land investments that are supposed to all take place on land that cannot be used for food production. So I think they could really benefit from such maps of what's going on right now.
Thank you. Let me bring the session formally to a close, but I encourage you to come up and informally interact with our panelists, and maybe you will have ideas for further ways to further the work that they were mentioning, and so forth. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us, and please